What's going on, y'all? Chidi Delibe back with another video. In this one, I'm dealing with, again, the whole Parkland shooting. And I'm honestly, at this point, left-wing policies clearly made it so that this school shooting was able to happen with the ease in which it happened. And even more so, I'm putting it on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, President Obama. I'm putting a heavy amount of blame at his doorstep. And I'm going to explain why. Recently, a report came out by a guy named Paul Sperry from a website. It's called RealClearInvestigations.com. I'll put the link to the report in the description box below. And in this report, it was detailing how the President Obama administration, they wanted to deal with the whole school to prison pipeline, even though that's a complete fallacy in the sense of how supposedly schools are just sending black kids straight from school to prison and kind of gearing them for the ability to go to prison, which is ridiculous. All stemming from the fact that supposedly black children in these urban areas are being, or in these wider areas, are more suspended, more chances of being expelled. But then even in the same instance, if you go to a black neighborhood, if you go to Oakland, if you go to the inner city, you see that kids are expelled at just the same rate, if not more. And of course, with more black representation on the school board and for principals and such. So nonetheless, that's a ruse. That's a lie. But they still have this idea the left wingers want to deal with the school to prison pipeline. So under President Obama, he put forth an initiative, and in Broward, the school district, they adopted those policies from the Obama administration. Now, the superintendent for the Broward School District is a guy named Robert Runcie. He's a Chicago guy. He's also a Harvard guy. He has ties to President Obama, ties to the education department. I believe the education secretary at that time was Arnie Duncan, I believe the guy's name. In my estimation, didn't do a good job with schools. But what they did was they had this program where instead of trying to fight the school to prison pipeline, they decided, hey, let's go ahead and make all these different crimes and different very negative things that these kids are actually doing, like assaults, thefts, violent acts towards women, assaulting teachers, things that are worthy of police involvement and charges being brought. We don't want that to happen anymore. So what we're going to do is we're totally not going to charge kids. We're not going to have police involvement. We're not going to suspend the kids, these black kids. We're not going to expel them, no matter how bad they get. Instead, we're going to have things like healing circles. I don't even know what the heck that is. We're going to have counseling, which I'm not against counseling, but what I am against is somebody violently assaults a teacher and you don't expel that kid, and instead you want to just have counseling and a healing circle. That is foolishness. That leads to zero accountability, and that leads to kids being more emboldened to being wild, crazy, and doing things that are destructive, and stopping the school from actually becoming a place in which it's supposed to be a place of learning. And so we see that with the adoption of this program, I believe it's called Promise, for the Broward School District, thanks to President Obama and his initiative that was pushed against a whole bunch of different school districts across the nation. You see, the Parkland shooter had many run-ins with the police. The police were called to his place. He had assaults. He had different things that would have had charges being put on his record. Now, if he would have wanted to get a gun when he got all these charges on his record, if all these policies weren't there, then he would have been flagged. He wouldn't have been able to get a gun. But if he's really crazy enough, do you think he's going to find a way to get a gun from somebody else, whether it be illegally or just borrow a gun, whoever, or get a straw purchaser to buy him a gun? Sure, he can do that. So would this still have happened? There's a high potential that, of course, he could still get it done. But all these people who now want to blame the NRA, all these people who want to blame and go after Wayne LaPierre and Dana Lash and pretty much any warm-blooded white Republican, because obviously they're the enemy of children at this point. They want to see more murdered children in schools, as foolish as that sounds. They want to go after these people instead of going after the left-wing president, going after the superintendent for your school district, that allowed and made sure that a man like the Parkland shooter was able to get a gun and kill the people. See, guns don't kill people. People kill people. And we keep on saying that over and over again. I remember back, you can read about articles, you can read old catalogs, like the Sears Roebuck catalog from the 30s and 40s and 50s. You see they'd have dozens of pages of just guns being sold. This is Sears, all right? Just selling guns. They would advertise them to children. They would advertise them to adults, talking about getting kids, for their 16th birthday, you get them a rifle, all right? But even though we had such a high access to guns in the 40s and 50s and 60s, you had such a low amount of school shootings, mass shootings. Why is that so? Why is it that back several decades prior, you had more access, you had less damage? But nowadays, we see more people advocating for less access, but even so, there's more damage being done. And of course, we can't get past the fact that only a couple hundred people a year, as bad as that is, are killed by rifles, but several thousand people a year are killed by handguns. The AR-15 is not the issue here. Semi-automatic rifles are not the issue here. People are the issue here. Godlessness is the issue here. The valuing of human life is the issue here. Children being raised without fathers is the issue here. And presidential policies and left-wing policies that allow for the lack and the removal of consequences and the removal of accountability, whether it be for an adult or for a child, leads to people being able to be put in a position where they can do harm. And that's where it ends. We need to have an honest conversation, not about gun control, okay, but about accountability control. We are removing accountability, laws, and Christian principles and virtues that lead to a safer, more moral society. And then when we remove all those accountabilities and checks, and of course, God being promoted and God being touted, because obviously he is the solution. When we remove him, we see the damage being done, and now we're looking at inanimate objects as if they are the problem. We think if you remove a bump stock, you'll cause less shootings. If you restrict access to a child, or not a child, but if you restrict access to somebody to say you can't get a rifle or you can't get a gun till you're 21, first off, that is an egregious violation of the Second Amendment. What part of you shall not infringe? The right to bear arms shall not be infringed. What part of that do people not understand? Making it so, I don't understand what is so deadly between the 18-year-old and the 21-year-old. What is this deadly range where for some odd reason, if you got a gun between those 3 years, it's really bad. But if you are a 21-and-a-half-year-old, for some odd reason, now you're safe with a gun. Now, for some reason, some switch has happened. And now for some odd reason, I guess you are less likely to shoot up a school with 17 kids. Doesn't make much sense. That is not what is going to fix the problem. And honestly, there is no solution to school shootings because evil is real. And ungodly people who want to do ungodly amounts of damage are real. And they will find a way to do their ungodly damage, especially when those people are left unchecked and the barriers and the morality checks put in place to help steer them are removed. Why don't we just talk about that? Instead, we're wasting time talking about the NRA, millions of Americans who legally and lawfully own guns and aren't out shooting people. I don't see any NRA members coming to schools and shooting them up. I see NRA members, like over at the church shooting, who took their AR-15 and stopped a shooter. I saw that. So let's just be honest with each other. Let's be honest and put the blame where the blame belongs. The blame belongs at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I don't believe that President Obama, of course, advocates murder. And I don't believe he, or outside of Planned Parenthood and the murder of children, he advocates that. But the advocating of actual schools where children are being shot and advocating that, he doesn't advocate that. I wouldn't believe that. But I do believe that the policies in which he's advocated have led to the destructive events that we're seeing. And that needs to be called out. Remove these foolish, no consequence for crimes, no consequence for children who assault teachers, who assault students, who do just dangerous things in schools. These children need to be held accountable. And yes, they need to be held accountable by the police. And yes, if they want to act up and act crazy, they need to be expelled from schools. They need to be held accountable. And there need to be responsible parents and fathers stepping up, raising their children, and not abandoning their parental responsibility. That's my time, you guys. Let me know what your thoughts are below. Check the link for the Real Clear Investigations article so you can see how it was laid out. I believe it was laid out very well and very clearly. And you can see where the blame should really be. It's not the NRA. It's on a society that doesn't want accountability, and a society that wants to remove God, remove Christian principles from the mainstream and put leftism in the mainstream. And we're seeing what we got. Go ahead and like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts are, and I will see you guys on the next one. I'm out.